Shomon Kattoshu Dai 66足 Daibai 倍数方向時ちなみに大倍の上昇にと久しく大倍と聞くいぶかし倍数熟すやまだしやしいわくいずれのところにかくちばしを長剣工事いわく百殺罪し手を開じていわく我に隠しを返しきたれ工事無語 Entangling Vines, Case 66 Daibai's Plum Pit Layman Pang asked Daibai, I have long heard about the great plum. Is the fruit ripe yet? The master said, What's there to peck at? Layman Pang said, I've chewed it to bits. The master held out his hand and said, Then give me the pit. Layman Pang said nothing. Once again, welcome to Bosatsu Zendo for the first time, for the umpteenth time, maybe for the last time. Holy Day Sesshin celebrates many holy days, not necessarily just because of its proximity to Easter, its proximity to Passover, or whatever other holy day you can think of. But the birth of the Buddha, or I would say the birth of the human being, Siddhartha Gautama, who took the path to become the Buddha, is the birth of us all and our birthright of awakening, of being awake, of being that cosmic one who said when he was born supposedly, Tenjo Tenge Yuiga Dokson, above and below the heavens, I alone am, the world are not one. It's just me. There are no others. A wonderful story. Since we don't have a talk tomorrow, I will say a few things about that today in anticipation of the birth of the Buddha. I'm sure some of us remember, according to legend, how the Buddha was born. He was born from his mother's armpit. That's very, very likely. How many people do you know who were born from their mother's armpit? So it's a legend. Second of all, it says the Buddha was born. Yet the story that we know historically is that Siddhartha was born and became the Buddha that fateful morning of day 8 under that tree when he awoke. But here the Buddha was born and the boughs were reaching down from heaven already towards his mother. That's why we have this wonderful flower bower here above our little Buddha, who's pointing up to the sky and down to the earth. He's standing in a bath of water from Beecher Lake. Traditionally, it is some kind of a sweet tea. But here it's the water from Beecher Lake. And when you come to the Dharma Hall, when you are on your way to the Zendo, or when you're returning from the Zendo, or at night when you can't sleep. The baby Buddha is always happy to be bathed. So go up to the Butsudan, just be reverential, pick up the ladle, take some water and gently bathe him from the top of his head. He's very grateful for that. It's a nice way to step over all these legendary things, all the disbeliefs that we might bring into this practice. And when it comes down, giving a baby that needs a bath, the soothing pour of water coming from our heart to the heart of that impersonation of a being that cannot yet stay alive without our help. And the longer we practice, the more we will learn that actually it is just a delusion to think that we could stay alive ourselves without the help of society, of our Dharma family, of our family in terms of who brought us up, our family of human beings, our family of all the other sentient beings and the insentient. Landscapes, clouds, sunshine, air. So making that connection when you step up and you bathe the Buddha and you pour all of your goodwill onto this and all other sentient and insentient beings is a wonderful practice. It might not seem very Zen, you know. You might still be used to the type of Zen that you walk up and you look at the little baby Buddha and say, "Wash yourself!" No need. Oh, let me just bathe you a little bit. So that will be tomorrow, and we'll have the ceremony in a way that in the ceremony, since we're not a very, very large crowd, so we'll have 2 ladles and we'll have the ceremonial bathing, and everybody will have a chance tomorrow to do it during the ceremony. It's just so much fun. That is the baby Buddha here. And we won't have a talk tomorrow in the afternoon because we will venture outside in silence and walk down to the beach house. Hopefully it will not be too cloudy. And we have a pair of eclipse glasses for each of you if you'd like to look straight at the sun as it will shade itself by the presence of the moon to 95% covered. It will be quite an experience. And if it's cloudy, it will still get dark. And it's not just the light that goes away. When the light goes away, you will feel the temperature will change. The wind might pick up and start blowing in the opposite direction than before. And that is probably one of the best Teishos that could ever be given. But today you're stuck with me. Today you get a bargain basement version of a Teisho. Not only don't we have a hoku player to make the nice little sound in the beginning so that we can make sure everybody's awake. And we also didn't play the big bell, so that's okay too. Maybe the next time we'll do it. It's all not because it's a requirement by edict. Yeah, it's just, it fits into the schedule, you know. The schedule will be off if we are missing the time for the bell, the time for the hoku, and so on. But we'll be fine. We'll be fine. I always remind people what Joshu Roshi used to do. The shika was always sitting on the right or the left side, I think on the left side of his high chair, and would keep track of the time. And when the time came, a little bell was rung. Oh, Roshi would look at his watch and say, "It's time already." That was after an hour. "It's time already, but I feel like talking a little more." And he would go on, and he would go on, and he would go on. We don't have to do this. But it's a really great experience. And Teisho is not about what the person up here says. It's not so much about that. It's more about the manifestation of somebody who's just being themselves in the function of giving a Teisho, in the function of impersonating the result, the suchness of what this practice and their life has brought them to in this very moment. It was very clear with Joshu Roshi again, because when he spoke, he only spoke in Japanese. So there was a translator here. And it was very often the same thing. The Roshi would say something, the translator would start translating, and the monks would, as soon as the translator started, go like, fall asleep. And then the Roshi started speaking again. They woke up, even though they did not understand what he was saying. And he would look down at them and said, "It's wonderful to see you sleeping. It is so much better than thinking. And your heads bob up and down like the ripe eggplants in the summer breeze." It's very poetic. So, feel free to bathe the Buddha, please. Don't be shy. And look at Master Rinzai, who is behind, depicted, because we will have the Rinzai commemoration also during these holy days that we celebrate here. Now today, we are dealing with plums. Not prunes, which we could use sometimes, but plums. Daibai is the Osho, Daibai Hojo. Daibai, could be said either way. Daibai lived from 752 until 839 and appears in two cases of this Shumon Katoshu, this collection. Of course, he lived in China. He was a native of Shangjiang, in present-day Hubei. His actual family name was Zheng. Like many of the monks at that time, they first studied the Vinaya, the sutras, and doctrine. For over 30 years, he did that. That's quite a long time. For 30 years. And then he encountered Baso Doitsu, one of our most important ancestors in China at that time. Mazu Daoi, Baso Doitsu. And he studied with Baso for a long time, and his awakening is ascribed to him hearing Baso say, "This very mind is Buddha." Very famous statement. This very mind is Buddha. he received transmission from Baso, and then he practiced in seclusion for 40 more years on a mountain that had the name Great Plum Mountain. That's why his name is Daibai. There's a temple in Sendai, Daibai-ji. And Daibai-ji, it was the Hoshi family. The Hoshi family, good friends of Genro Seon. And Hoshi also came to Vienna many times, and he also came and visited me when I lived in the Alps in Innsbruck in Austria. And he was very kind from Daibai-ji. And my first monk's robe as a unsui was a gift from Daibai-ji in Sendai. So one day a monk sent by Baso to look, what happened to Daibai? Baso was thinking, let me send somebody there and see how he's doing. Well, he's been studying with me and then he left and I haven't heard from him for a very long time. So go and ask how he's doing. And the monk that came to visit Daibai said, oh, by the way, what did this old man Baso say to you that brought you to live on this mountain? And Daibai replied, Baso said, this very mind is Buddha. Oh, nowadays Baso teaches differently, said the monk. Now he says, not mind, not Buddha. So the complete opposite. Not mind, not Buddha. Daibai responded, that old monk is always confusing people. He may say, not mind, not Buddha, but I'll stay with this very mind is Buddha. The monk went back to Baso and recounted his encounter with Daibai. And upon hearing it, Baso said, listen up, monks. The plum has ripened. An increasing number of students came to study with Daibai on the mountain. He founded finally a monastery and several hundreds, 600-700 monks appeared. So what is that teaching that this big Plum monk was expounding? So here is what Daibai said. One day he said to his monks, monks, work on reaching the root. Do not chase after the branches. Reach the root, and the rest will naturally follow. If you wish to perceive the root, just look into your own mind. This mind is the source of all, both mundane and supramundane. When mind arises, the various dharmas arise. When mind is extinguished, the various dharmas disappear. When the mind is unattached to good and evil, all things are in their true state. So he gives this picture of a tree. when we first come to a practice like this, a spiritual practice, we might be like the wild animals that are attracted by the ripened plums that have fallen from the tree. And we go, we smell something, and then we eat them. Sometimes we might eat it with the whole pit because we are so hungry. And then we digest everything except the pit. And that pit will come out. Let's hope it's not with a sharp edge or something like that. And what Daibai is pointing at is eating just the fruit is not enough. Don't chase after the branches, after the leaves, after these beautiful flowers which we have here. They are wonderful as they are. But when it comes to the study and to the investigation of this great matter, the penetration to the root, or as it is in this koan, to the core of the pit, is really important. And of course, there is no value judgment. A pit that has the soft kernel inside that will grow into a new tree is not better than the tree. The flowers and the fruit, ripe or not ripe, are not worthless or are not superior, not inferior. In the course of all things as they develop, every thusness is the full manifestation of this Buddha nature. But in terms of the practice, to be guided along, it is important to look at that very, very core of it. Here Daibai says the root. Reach the root and the rest will naturally follow, because reaching the root allows us to not only investigate this suchness, but also to pull from it a bodily, embodied understanding and reality of this activity of Dharma. So that's the first person who appears here. And of course, Daibai was well known. Along comes layman Pang. Well, who is that? Have we encountered layman Pang before? I think many of us know layman Pang. Ho on Koji. Ho on Koji appears in 4 cases in this Shumon-kato-shu. And he lived from 740 to 808. And he's celebrated a lot in this Zen tradition because he's a layman, not ordained. Much like another very important layperson in this Buddhist teaching. Any other lay people come to mind who are very famous? Yeah, Vimalakirti. Also silent. Yeah. And what that, of course, shows for Mahayana Buddhists is that this monk's business is just a business. It's not what allows you or allows one to awaken. That is not related to it. What allows us to awaken is our being a human being. May we be ordained, may we know about Buddhism or not. There are awakened human beings in all different kinds of traditions. Or without any tradition, just naturally awake. But here in the Buddhist context, Ho Koji is really one of the early examples of this possibility that the Mahayana really includes everybody. Living an exemplary life and becoming fully awakened is a very nice ripe plum, isn't it? So his biography, what do we know? Hokoji was an upasaka, a non-ordained follower of the Buddha. He rarely used his personal name, which was Yun, or On in Japanese pronunciation. So Ho On Koji. He was from Henjiang, which happens to be also, well, it's in Hunan nowadays. And what did he do for a business? He was a merchant. He was a merchant. He had a wife. He had a son and he had a daughter. And he was just not any kind of merchant. He actually amassed a good amount of wealth to live comfortably. And what happens sometimes, which we probably all know a little bit, is that at many times, even this time, having some amount of means is often the prerequisite to even encountering this Buddhist practice. Certainly in America. Oh, you want to come? It's so and so many hundreds of dollars. Oh, you have to buy a robe. Buy this book, buy that book. Pay membership. Do this. Even though all of these are important, the support of the Sangha is important for anyone who can contribute in that way. But it cannot become or be a hurdle to encounter this practice. Just thinking of this building, it could barely be finished at the time when, in the early 70s, all the calculations for the building funds were turned upside down by the oil spigot being turned off. Oil prices rose. With that, all building materials became much, much more expensive. What should we do? We are running out of money to finish this building. We already did something today that has its origin in that very fact that the money was running out. Edo Roshi said, let's chant the Diamond Sutra. The Diamond Sutra chanting every day. Chanting, chanting, chanting. The Diamond Sutra over and over. And money came. The building was finished. And we are here. We are able to be here today because of that dedication. And Kongoji, the Vajra temple. Vajra, of course, diamond temple. The name was also chosen because of that circumstance, that the chanting of the Diamond Sutra was undertaken to start the cosmic energies flow to finish this building. So Hokoji had some money too. And it allowed him and his whole family to study the sutras. And they all became very well educated in the Buddhist canon. His daughter especially, her name was Ling Zhao. She was particularly adept. He retired from his profession when he was done with his business, and his understanding of the Buddhist teaching deepened more and more. And he started to think about what the spiritual dangers of having so much money are. His material wealth. And again, legend has it that he placed all his possessions on a big boat that he had, that he then sunk in the middle of a river. Of course, this is a metaphor for giving up, for leaving home, even though he was not ordained. Here in this tradition of Rinzai Zen and Japanese Zen, there are two types of ordinations. One ordination is called the Zaike Tokudo. Zaike is staying at home, householder Zen. And those are the folks who go to work, who have family, who take care of their obligations. And then in the past, the Tokudo for what we call the monks and the nuns, that was Shukke Tokudo. Shutsu, to leave home. Home leaver ordination. It's really important to understand that this leaving home, when we look at it from the Zen tradition, is a constant, always repeating practice that all of us do. We leave the home of this more or less comfortable, at least known self, to make the room for a new home to appear. Even if one gets ordained and becomes a monk at Bosatsu Zendo, or a nun, or a monastic anywhere else, it is finding a new home. And even that new home, we have to leave. Because any home that is a home that is static will just be an encumbrance, making it difficult to grow. Think of a crab. A crab happily in the ocean, goes around, eats the plankton, and grows. And then it becomes uncomfortable because it's growing, because the shell is hard. And so what does it do?
Finds a new shell.
First it ditches the old shell, right? It breaks out of it. And what happens then if one breaks out of the shell? It gets very soft. It's called soft shell crab. People deep fry it and eat it with aioli. But it's the same here when this home leaving takes place, the leaving behind of that shell. One comes out and it's somewhat vulnerable. And by doing it over and over again, we become less and less fearful of, what might happen? Yeah? But this is the activity of that shukke, of leaving home. So here, Layman Pang did exactly the same thing. I don't know what his wife said about it. I haven't seen if anything about her was said after he gave all the worldly belongings away. But certainly he and his daughter started to go on pilgrimage. So around 785, Pang become studying with Buddhist masters. And to just get enough income to survive, he and his daughter started making bamboo utensils. Maybe like this wonderful ladle that is made from bamboo to bathe the Buddha. Or like one of those wonderful spatulas we use to make matcha many things from bamboo. So they made it and they sold it, just enough to survive. So he started studying under Sekito Kisen at Nangaku Mountains. And he went straight to the master, Sekito, and asked, "Who is the one who is not a companion to the 10,000 dharmas?" At this question, Sekito placed his hand over Pang's mouth. This gesture by Sekito led Hokoji to a previously unrealized insight and deepened his understanding. And he thereafter spent several months with Sekito. And so during that time, Sekito also asked Hokoji, "What have you been doing lately?" And the verse that Hokoji created here is very famous in the Zen tradition. "My daily activities are not unusual. I am just naturally in harmony with them, grasping nothing, discarding nothing. In every place, there is no hindrance, no conflict. My supernatural power and marvelous activity is drawing water and chopping wood." Who chops wood? Here. Oh yeah, a couple of people chopping wood. We all draw water just to wash our faces in the morning. It's a wonderful expression of this realization of the unhindered, unfettered activity of just being in accord with this unfolding of the Tathagata, of the suchness. During that time, Hokoji also traveled with Tanka Tennen, who we know, if you know a couple of the stories, that he is the one who was cold one day on pilgrimage when he sought refuge in a temple overnight in the winter and chopped up a Buddha statue and burned it, yeah. There are wonderful paintings, manga paintings, where you can see Tanka leaning forward and exposing his rear end to the fire, also giving it this extra kick of irreverence. But as we all know, there is no irreverence in actually burning that statue. So Baso Doitsu welcomed both Tanka and Hokoji. He's then sent Tanka on to Sekito, but layman Pang, Hokoji, asked the same question that he had initially asked Sekito, that we just heard before. Who is the one who is not a companion to the 10,000 dharmas? Who is it that doesn't keep company with the 10,000 things? Same question. He stayed with Baso, and Baso made him one of his successors. So let me tell you a couple of stories of layman Pang and his family. We spoke about his daughter. One day, Hokoji and his daughter were out selling bamboo baskets. Coming down off a bridge, he stumbled and fell. When the daughter saw this, she ran to her father's side and threw herself on the ground next to him. "What are you doing?" said Hokoji. The daughter said, "I saw you fall, father, so I'm helping." Luckily, no one was looking, remarked Layman Pang. And what an interesting story. Have you ever fallen? What do we do first when we see someone fall? We try to reach out. What do we do if we fall? Did anyone see me? All self-centered. Very interesting. But all she did was engage exactly in the same activity. One mind, one heart, one body. A true child of this Father. Another story. One day someone asked Hokoji, and that's a question that you might have sometimes too. Is Zen difficult or easy? At that time there were so many different forms of Buddhism. This sutra, that sutra, the Vinaya, Zen, and this and so on. So people would ask that question, is it difficult? Is it difficult or easy? And he replied, it's like trying to hit the moon with a stick. Very, very difficult. Then that person started thinking about it and was really not satisfied. But he thought, oh, Zen is very, very difficult. So the next day he went and asked his wife. Your husband said Zen is difficult. Well, let me ask you then, is Zen difficult or is it easy? She said, oh, Zen is very easy. It's like touching your nose when you wash your face in the morning. The man still didn't understand. He thought to himself, the husband says Zen is very, very difficult. His wife says it's very easy. Which of the two is correct? So he went to ask the son and said, your father said Zen is very difficult. Your mother said it is very easy. Which one is correct? The son replied, if you think it's difficult, then it's difficult. If you think it's easy, then it's easy. Don't make difficult and easy. The person still wasn't satisfied, didn't get it. So he went to the daughter. And he said, everyone in your whole family has a different answer to my question. Your mother said, Zen is easy. Your father said, Zen is difficult. And your brother said, don't make difficult and easy. So I ask you, is Zen difficult or easy? The daughter answered, let's have some tea. Wonderful. So, this is the guy who walks up to Daibai and asks, well, I've long heard about the great Plum. Is the fruit ripe yet? That's quite daring. It's quite daring. It's quite almost rude in Zen terms. So I've heard about your great enlightenment. Now, what's the skinny on that? Right? Tell me about it. It's a real challenge. It's like slapping him with the Zen gauntlet. The master said, "What's there to peck at? What are you asking?" Layman Pang returned, saying, "I have chewed it to bits." Meaning, I have eaten that sweet fruit. And apparently, he must have swallowed the pit as well. Because the master held out his hand and said, "Okay, give me the pit." And Layman Pang could not say anything. So when we deal with that hard shell of that pit that we all encounter here, partially the hard shell can be seen in the schedule we are following. It seems hard at times. Oh, I can't manage that. This is too hard. This is too sharp. I can't bite, especially if I don't have all my teeth. And so we have to find different ways of relating to it. What happens when that fruit falls off the tree and just lies there, and then it's eaten, and then the deer runs somewhere on the other side of Beach Lake and creates these wonderful little chocolatey looking things, and the pit comes out and lies there. Will it lie there forever? No. What will happen? As I said in the opening words, the snow will melt. Can you hear it? The water will run downhill to the lake. It might just pass by that pooped out pit and get it wet enough so that even that hard shell slowly soaks in the water, step by step, sitting by sitting, chanting of the Diamond Sutra after chanting of the Diamond Sutra, gasho after gasho, drawing water after drawing water, chopping wood after chopping wood, slowly penetrating it until it reaches the inside, where that Buddha nature that is in that pit is activated. And with the warmth of the sunlight, which of course is the warmth of our ability to feel compassion, to feel empathy, to give ourselves away fully, like the sun burns itself up to its own extinction. It will break open. It will put the root into the ground, sprout, and the tree will grow. The leaves will come. The plums will grow. The relations with wind, water, sun, bees, deer have a cosmic effect. And that's exactly what we're doing in this practice here. So at times we might become impatient. We might wish that the water would penetrate that hard shell quicker, that the sun would shine more. But when the time is ripe, inevitably, in all of us, the seed in that pit will come out. The question of, I have long heard about the great plum, is the fruit ripe yet? Is a challenge to Daibai, who sends the counter challenge of, well, if you are asking this question, give me the core of it. And I would not interpret Layman Pang's said nothing as he was unable to say anything, because already he had learned from Sekito. And that's better what I do now too.